Hey guys, I'm at Picayune Strand State Forest, which is in Collier County. In fact, we're not too far from Lely Elementary School. Actually, we're only about 10 minutes down the road from Lely Elementary. I'm out here this morning and I'm noticing a lot of pine trees around me in the woods here. These pine trees aren't very big yet. In fact, I know the guy that's out here planting these trees because he wants to see this forest get big. So I can see some tall pine trees behind me over here. Oh, there's one. See that big one way over there? Wow, that is beautiful. You know, when we see lots of the same kind of plant or animal in one area, pine tree, pine tree, pine tree, pine tree, we call that a population. They're all the same kind of plant or animal in one space, and we call that a population. Now, these pine trees are all similar. They all go up straight. They've got one main stem, or in a tree, we usually call that a trunk. And then they start branching out. And I can see that for most of these pine trees, they tend to branch out higher above the ground, not real low. The branches are higher. And they have needles, not leaves. In fact, here's a cypress tree right here. This is another kind of tree that also has needles. If you look closely at them, these aren't leaves like we think of on a tree. These are needles. And this cypress tree does something really special. It drops its needles in the fall, and then these needles come back in the spring. So these are new needles that are just coming out. Oh wow, this is cool. Look at down here, right next to this cypress tree, this young cypress tree, because it's not real big. Here's another pine. A little kid pine, if you will. How cute. Now, that's similar to the bigger pines. It's got one main branch or trunk coming up out of the ground, and that's different from this cypress because this cypress has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different trunks or branches that are coming up there. The pine has one main branch coming up out of the ground, one main stem, and that's similar to the adult pines that are over there, but it's different because it hasn't started branching out like the bigger pines. But it does have needles. It's got the same kind of needles. And then it's got these little sprout tips. See this little sprout tip? Sometimes these are called candles. See that up there at the top? These little sprout tips are sometimes called candles. Oh, and this is cool. Here's a brand new baby one just coming up out of the ground over here. Look at this little guy. How awesome is that? And this looks a lot like grass. In fact, scientists call this the grass phase of the plant because it looks like grass. It doesn't have a main trunk yet. It doesn't have that main trunk that the bigger trees do. It's got needles. It has a little bit of a trunk. It's still got the candle on the tip there. Now, what's really neat about the grass phase of the pine tree, because it looks like grass, it also kind of acts like grass, but there's something really special about this baby grass phase of the pine. Sometimes there's fires out here, and those fires will burn through, and they burn up all this dried stuff on the ground, and that's really good because this baby needs lots of sunlight in order to grow into a big tree. And what those fires do will burn out all of the old, dead, look at this. This is a dead tree that's fallen over. There's pine needles on the ground and branches. And look, shells. A lot of shells. Wow. Lots of, you know what? I'll bet somebody like a bird that likes to eat these kinds of snails, I'll bet he likes to sit right here on the branch of this pine tree, eat his snails, and then he tosses the shells on the ground. I'll bet you, because there's a bunch of them right underneath this branch. So anyway, when a fire goes through this area, it burns all the dead stuff on the ground, and what happens is this grass part, the needles of the pine, don't actually burn. Because they have a lot of moisture, a lot of water in them, they start steaming and they protect the plant inside. So the fire will come through quickly, clean up everything so that this baby has a nice spot to grow, and then the pine tree can continue to grow. That's a really awesome adaptation to this area. Let's walk over and take a look at some that are a little bit bigger. Now here's this one. This one's gotten a little bigger than the little baby that we saw over there. Now you can see the trunk, like the adults. It's starting to branch out. We still see it's growing and it's splitting up at the top here. This one's even bigger. Clearly see different branches, the bark of the trunk, the older dead material at the bottom. See why that fire would be good? That fire is going to clean out all that dead stuff down there, and the tree will continue to grow. Now the pine tree might sit at that grass phase, that little baby phase, for a while, for a couple of years in fact, and then suddenly when it shoots up like this, these guys grow really fast. They get a growth spurt because they want to get those needles up above the ground. They want to get that bark and that tree trunk up above the ground. Now let's walk over and take a look at these larger ones over here. These are not quite adults yet, but they're getting really close. Look at the bark, that nice thick bark. I'm not going to pull any off because the tree needs that bark. It also helps to prevent damage to the tree when fires come through. That bark can burn and fall off and protect the inside of the tree. So that's important to this tree. Now we can see these clearly defined branches. So this is similar to the smaller ones that are over there. It's similar to, oh, here's another one in grass phase. Similar to the baby ones, but it's got its own branches now. The only thing that I don't see are pine cones. So I don't think, now I said this is almost an adult, but not quite. It's almost an adult, but not quite, because it's not giving off any cones yet. It's not reproducing and making new pine trees. So I'm going to walk over here and I'm going to take a look at this much larger pine tree. This one looks like an adult. Let's go see if we can find any pine cones on the ground. Oh, there we go. I was right. There we are. So right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 different pine cones just right here in this one area. And again, this is why fire is so important. Fire helps these pine cones actually open up. You'll see that it'll split open and the seeds are down inside there. Now, these ones that are out here have plenty of sunlight, plenty of room, plenty of air. But this one back underneath here, that one's buried underneath all this dead stuff. So that fire helps even the pine cones because it burns away all that dead stuff. Up, and there's another one, number 6. It helps to burn away all that dead stuff. That way the plant, when it starts to grow, has an open space without all this dead stuff. It's going to get everything it needs, water, sunlight, and air, in order to grow into a big, tall pine tree, just like this one over here behind me. Now this one is an adult. We know it's an adult because it's shedding pine cones. And I don't know if you can see, but there's pine cones hanging off the branches way up there. You'll notice again, there's no branches down here. They're all up there. Again, because of fire. When the fire comes through, it keeps the branches above the level of the fire now. So this one's safe from fire. Now, I don't notice any evidence of fire in this field. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop back in my Jeep and I'm going to drive around a little bit and see if I can't find some evidence of fire and share that with you. All right, I'm going to jump out of the Jeep, and my daughter just pointed out that on this part of the road, one side of the road is perfectly healthy. There's no sign. Oh, look at that population of pine trees. That's beautiful. All pine, low grass, nothing in between, plenty of space to grow. Over on this side of the road, these trees have been burned. The evidence for that is the scorching, the black marks that are on the trees. So let's jump over here, and I'm just being careful not to step on any young plants or fragile plants that might be trying to come up. I don't want to step on any of those grass phase plants. See, this is nice because over here I can see lots of wildflowers. There's birds back in here flying around, getting the seeds, getting the insects. This is a healthy community out here. Okay, now let's come over here. Now on this pine tree, you can see this has been burned. I can't really smell anything, so it's been a while ago. It's been burned for a while. And you can see those scorch marks go up about to the top of my fingertips. I can reach about 8 feet. So maybe those flames went up about 9 feet total. Most of the trees over here show some kind of evidence of burning. The cool thing about that is it helps the pine tree. You can see that the bark is still on, it's healthy. It is scorched, but there's new bark underneath so that it doesn't hurt the tree. The fire, the bark actually protects it from that. This is a healthy area because after all that dead stuff is burned away, that leaves space for new plants to come up. So we've got lots of new plants, new grass, new flowers, wildflowers. There's pretty little flowers over here, way off into the distance. So fire helps the community, fire helps the ecosystem. And all of these plants out here are specifically adapted to survive that fire. They have properties, they have characteristics that help them survive in a fire ecosystem. Sometimes it's nice just to sit and listen and enjoy.